Good morning. Hi, I'm Frank Messina, and this is the June 17, 2025 meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission. Before we start, we have a couple of announcements that we have to make. Please note, this meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, please notify the chairman. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 signing of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law 3820, until June 30th, 2027. This meeting of the Chatham Historical Commission is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410, conference ID 865-897-167#, or join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real access. You reduced the typeface on that, didn't you? I'm wondering, thank you very much. I know you're trying to get it to 2 pages, okay. Okay. All right, here we go. Thank you very much. We need a roll call to find out who's here. Bob Lear, Vice Chair.
Here.
Nancy Barr, Clerk.
Here.
Stephanie Hamilton.
Here.
Sandy Porter.
Here.
Janet Tennyson.
Here. Hey.
Robert Stevens.
Here.
Stevens.
Here.
And alternate Robert Wilson.
Here.
And the chair is here. We have a full 7 members of the commission. Robert Wilson is the alternate. Robert will participate in the hearing and in questions. He just will not have a vote during the meeting. Okay, just quickly, the minutes of June 3rd, 2025. I think Annie did a good job in capturing the extended discussion on 389 Bridge Street. And I'm going to be sure with Christina that the determination makes it clear how we would like them to proceed, and I think they agreed to. Any other comments, questions, suggestions, changes? Yeah, I get an A+ today. Okay, motion?
So I move we accept the minutes as written.
A second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Okay, no other comments? Quick roll call. Bob Lear?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Stephanie Hamilton? Sandy Porter?
Yes.
Janet Tennyson?
Yes.
Robert Stevens?
Yes.
And Robert Wilson?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. And the public notice, we have 3 Roberts. So things get a little dicey sometimes. All right. We have 3 applications, and I'm going to ask the public and the chair. I'm going to change the agenda a little bit and move the third one, 25016, 69 Orleans Road, and keep 70 Sears Point last, rather than tying some people out, because it might be a little longer than our normal hearing. Okay, so the first application is 25014. Be heard under Chapter 158. And this is technically a partial demolition of 141 Cutchapicniccut. Okay, that's close enough. Why don't you come on up? This is, for the members of the commission and to the public, things happen, okay? I want to just get a little preamble here. There's no question this property at this address has a very historic home, which goes back into the 1700s. And over a period of time, I'm probably giving you a speech, there was an addition, not an addition, but basically another structure put on the property. I don't know how they got away with that from the planning board, from us, but they did. So the problem is, or the question is, we're really not addressing the historic property, but that's not the way the system works. An address is an address. And with this case, the address, there's only one address for the property, which has two structures, independent structures. So having said that, technically, we probably could have handled this a different way, but why don't you introduce yourself and just quickly give us an overview of what happened and what we.
Good morning. My name is Joe Perillo, owner of Perillo Construction. My brother and sister-in-law bought this house in 2020, and we did some work on the main house and on the annex, is what we call it. And the deck was rotted on the bottom layer. It was rotted right through. The dogs were getting caught underneath, so I removed it. It was a safety hazard. And the stairs that went up to the second door were also rotted and rickety, and we didn't need them, the stairs on the inside. It was just, so I removed them, not knowing that I needed a demolition permit to remove rot, which I didn't understand at the time. That was in 2020. Since then, I got my Mass General Contractor's license. I pull permits in Chatham, towns all. I understand the rules a lot better now. So, that being said, I did take it down without a permit. So,
Okay. I think most of us made the site visit, so I guess we get a sense of what happened. Are they literally two homes, two?
no,
Is it a cottage?
It's like a little in-law apartment.
Yeah, so it's considered a house and a cottage.
Correct.
Okay, that's how they get, because it's not subdivided for two homes.
A lot of it was done before my brother.
Of course, yeah, no, I just was interested,
2020.
because that's part of the issue, what happened.
I believe so. It was marked as 8 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, but legally,
Yeah.
it can only be
Okay,
2 and 5.
I guess I'm
5
asking
and
that,
2. So that was the issue, I believe.
yeah, I'm asking that in the form of an apology, really, from my perspective, between Christina and myself. You see the address, well, okay, well, you know, it's more than 75 years, historic home, Form B, we're gonna hear it. And then when you start looking into it, and for just a quick aside for the members of the commission, at some particular point, I don't know, maybe in the fall, we're going to revisit our rules and regs again to try and get some sense from the staff, if you will, just how far we can take our administrative approval. So something like this technically wouldn't come through the town doesn't need his $150, and, we don't have to put everybody through it because it's an expense that we probably shouldn't bear, the individuals nor the town. So, okay, I don't believe, from my view, and Bob, I need your help here, because I don't view the structure we're worrying about as historically significant versus the other property, but I don't know how do we go proceed, and so, will anybody have any comments about this whole thing?
I'm maybe a little confused about which, the centerpiece is the old barn? Is that how that works?
There's an old barn,
Right.
yes,
And that's historically significant?
yes, it is.
Okay,
So I guess we really have to,
I think we can deal with it by saying we find it's partially historically significant, but that the activities which took place did not
got it.
hurt
Okay.
that part of it.
All right,
In
good.
fact, they improved that part of it.
All right, that sounds good. All right, I can run around the room, but does anybody really have anything more to add? I see we have a consensus that this is something that just happened. Okay, Robert. Bob?
Let's just get to the Form V. I move that the Chatham Historical Commission find that a structure located at 141 Koch-Pennicott Road is historically significant because it is in whole or in part 75 years old or more, and it is also associated with historical persons and events of the town of Chatham, and it possesses architectural value as stated in the Form B, that it's a well-preserved and detailed example of traditional regional type. And therefore, we find it's historically significant.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Any member of the public wish to speak for or against the application? Okay, the historical significance we're voting on. All right. Bob?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Robert? And the chair
Yes.
votes yes. All right, that's part one.
I'm also moved that the Chatham Historical Commission find the proposed work to be done dated May 19th, 2025, will not materially diminish the historic significance of the building, and therefore the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Any members of the public wish to speak for or against the application? Seeing none. Bob?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Welcome to Chatham. Okay, again, I'm going to just flip, so we move it quickly through this. Mr. Minor, you're in attendance?
Yes, I am.
Okay, very good. Application 25016, 671 Orleans Road. This is an application to fully demolish a cottage on the property. This property, as your sheet, your summary sheet indicates, it's for a full demo, but the commission had determined that it previously was not historically significant, did not impose a demo delay, but a determination ran out and the applicant needed to reapply. So this is another one which falls in the same category of what we just discussed. We got to find a better way to handle this, so it's less of a burden to the public and to the administrative cost to the town. All right, Brian, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself and just tell us what's happening again?
Good morning. Thanks for having this hearing. I'll just quickly go off on Frank's comment that I would call this an administrative expiration of something that's already been reviewed and designated not historically significant. So nothing about the building has changed since 2022 when it first went through the process, I believe. I might have the year wrong, but the punchline of it all is we're continuing with our plan to replace the cottage with another structure, which is already permitted. And I had overlooked until just a few weeks ago the fact that your previous review had expired.
Okay, good. All right, again, pretty straightforward. Does anybody have any comments about the application? I think we have consensus that we should go through the process one more time administratively. Yes, I'm sorry. Oh, I apologize. Why don't you come forward, please? Introduce yourself. Well, okay, good. Just for information, as you're coming forward, there seems to be a consensus that the commission is going to allow it, but please.
Thank you. I think we were here before when he got the.
You just introduce yourself.
My name is Barbara Harris, and I own the driveway that Mr. Minor uses.
Yes.
For his constructions. And I have no idea what's going to happen. I understand that it's going to be torn down, and that's not relevant.
Yes.
My concern is my property, which is being used by him. The apron at the end of the driveway is in desperate bad condition. It's chunks falling off of it all the time. As you pull into the driveway, it's created a huge dip.
Could I interrupt you a second?
Yes. I know it's not a concern of yours.
No,
my
no, it's not,
property-
no, it's not, wrong word. It's not a concern, not that it's not a concern, it's a concern, of course, but we have no jurisdiction. What you're speaking of, and quite candidly, should properly be addressed to the building commissioner, Mr. Briggs.
Okay.
You know, and I think that's correct. And in the annex right here, with Christine Bassett is upstairs, and they will listen to it and provide the appropriate person to talk to for that kind of discussion,
Okay.
all right?
So I thought the last time you were here, or I was here, with the application for the tear down, that you required him to maintain or repair any things that had happened in the driveway.
I don't think so. That may have been the
what?
zoning board. That may have been the zoning.
Is it zoning?
No, because I think he had to go to zoning or planning.
Okay.
Mr. Minor, is that correct?
We went through every part of the process as required.
I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
It's kind of a non-answer.
We did go through every part of the
Yeah.
required process, and
Okay, fine.
everything's approved.
Got it.
So he repaired, was that? are you
I don't
saying,
know.
Brian, that you repaired the destruction on the apron?
It's really
there's
not,
nothing-
this is really not germane to our discussion. I apologize for that, but nobody's not making, your issues, your concern should be addressed to the building department, and they can provide you with someone who's responsible
Okay.
and the necessary enforcement.
Thank you. All right.
All right? Thank you very much. Anybody else wish to speak for or against it? Yes, ma'am.
Sorry, I just want to clarify for the public, just because we all are very aware of the situation, that, again, we're talking about a separate cottage. The property itself, the main residence, is historically significant.
Yes.
And we're talking about the property out back, which is a totally separate cottage.
Yes.
And I just wanted to clarify that, because we hadn't said that.
Yes, we could make that clear in the motion. Mr. Lear, okay?
I move the Chatham Historical Commission finds that the cottage located at 671 Orleans Road is not historically significant because it does not meet any of the definitional criteria in Section 158-2, A, B, or C of the bylaw. Therefore, the commission does not impose a demolition delay.
Second.
Thank you very much. Any member of the public wish to speak on the issue of historical significance? Thank you. Seeing none, we'll do a roll call. Bob?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes?
Stephanie?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
He clumped it, yep.
Oh, yeah, that's right, we
He
need,
clumped it together.
you clumped it
Yeah.
together, yeah. All right, guys. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. We used to do that. We used to do it all in one. And, yeah, but sometimes it got confusing. So my friend, Mr. Bob Oliver was the one who.
Yeah. I
decided.
can see, I think sometimes it's appropriate, and sometimes it's better to
not,
do it
yeah,
separately.
Right, and the simple ones it is. But that's another one where it probably could have easily been done as an administrative review.
Yes, I agree.
But we need to change, and by the way, we'll talk about it under old business, but what's holding us up, not holding us up, is we're trying to get town council to give us some guidance on how to proceed with that. All right, here we go. Application 25015, 70 Sears Point, to be heard in accordance with Chapter 158. This is an application to, to make some changes, personally significant in nature, to a home. There is a Form B on the property. This property is interesting property when, who built it and who lived there over years. So we do have some issues to take care of. On the survey list, I'm just wondering, anything else in the overview? No. Having said that, personally, I think some of these changes are rather significant, but we need to talk about it. So why don't you introduce yourself, Leslie?
You just said. My name is Leslie Schneeberger, Schneeberger Collective. Nice to see all of you today. I'm here representing Susan and Greg Shorten, the new owners of 70 Sears Point. may I go ahead and present?
All right,
May I go ahead and
I'm sorry?
explain the project?
yeah, right, exactly,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect.
But are you going to start with that chart?
That works fine for me.
That's
If I-
fine, because I think that says it all. Yeah.
Okay. If I may, thank you for moving us to the end to give a little more time, and if I could take a little bit of your time, I'd like to actually summarize the history of the property, and then talk about what we're proposing to do. So as all of you probably know, the Ruth Sears Reed House is at 70 Sears Point. It was part of the Willard Sears property that was established in 1910. In 1922, his daughter, Ruth Sears Reed, purchased that portion of the property. In 1930, I'm going into some of this because there was question yesterday about the age of the home and the age of the structures, and this is a little bit of the history of it. In 1930, there was a deed recorded by Ruth Reed Sears that, Ruth Sears Reed, I apologize, that showed the main cape, the square of the cape on the property. So we know that the house was in the area at that time. In 1940s, additions were put on. Her son is was Ted Williams Reed, the architect. Hope I'm getting that right. A little nervous, sorry. Ted Sears Reed. And what he did was he added to the house, so his mother Ruth, I'm going to skip ahead and then backwards. His mother Ruth actually was friends with the next owners, the Eckerd family, that has owned the house up until the Shortens purchased it last year. And through conversation with her, they learned that Ted used this house as a reproduction of sorts, even in the 1940s. So the beams that are in the house, he actually salvaged from old shipwreck. So the living room has these beautiful wooden beams that he got from a shipwreck and put on into the house. The living room has a really beautiful, what the Shortens are now using as their dining room to kind of highlight, has this beautiful woodwork around part of that central three fireplace area. And that came from a project he had worked on, an antique in the Western Mass area, and was brought down and recreated into the house. So it's my belief that the sunrooms, which are slab on grade, that are at the front of the house as well as at the back of the house, I believe he put those on, adding to the L that was there. And then the Eckards in the 90s created the breezeway that's in the middle, as well as built above what was an existing shed. They built above what is now the current garage. So the house has gone through many, many evolutions, which has kept it standing in its glory in that area. And the Shortens are a family of 5. They have 3 daughters and 1 son, college to recent graduate, and actually one is working in interior architecture, and purchased the home. To say on a whim is unfair, but did not intend to purchase the home. They love historic homes, and as any of you who were there yesterday found from Susan, she actually painstakingly had restored a home in Harwichport that she assumed was going to be their forever home, but had always been watching this house. And when it went on the market, although I believe it was a later time on the market, I'll explain that a little bit as well, they couldn't resist. It was just too perfect of an opportunity to purchase for their family. So I actually started working with the Eckards. The house had been for sale for quite some time before the Shortens did find it. And there were problems with the sale in that quite often people looked at, as you all know, this is a very iconic location, looked at a view of the amazing Chatham Lighthouse that you can look out at, and 180-degree views of the water, which is our seascape, and just wanted to tear the house down, which was really a challenge. And so the Eckards actually, through their second listing agent, connected with Schneeberger Collective to envision some schemes of what the house could be and prevent people from tearing it down. So I worked with both Sam and Ellen, who had lived in the house for a long time, and they told us what they loved about the house and what they could see doing differently and improving on the house had it stayed there, as things they would want to change because they hadn't had the time and money to invest in it in quite some time. And we came up with a number of different ways to make sure that we preserved that original cape. It was serving as 5 bedrooms. So there were 3 teeny tiny ones upstairs that shared a bathroom that you couldn't quite get into because the toilet was actually blocking the door, which is a theme through the house. The first floor had the same thing, and a little bedroom that was in what we're now going to have be the kitchen. So we always looked at ways we could open up that part of the house so that it really was used. And that is what we did in our design, embraced the water side and recognized that living room, dining room, primary suite, everything that they're really going to be entertaining and spending their time in was made comfortable and preserved. The biggest change in that area of the house is the small sunroom that really is facing right out to the water. We're proposing to remove that sunroom because it's a hard-to-use space and cutting off a lot of the living room. And so we are rebuilding a wider but shorter, as you can see sort of actually at the very leftmost side. Oh, let me get used to this. So this is coming off, and it's narrower, but the footprint, because we're also in conservation, the footprint is longer and expanded. So that allows for that opening to the water to be enjoyed from the living room, and it still has the same balcony for the bedroom up above. The other things that we looked at with the Eckards was then, once we did that, where are we going to get the space that a family's looking for from this property? And quite often, it was the connector in the middle, as well as rebuilding the garage at the end. This property is completely in conservation, has a lot of zoning nonconformities, as well as the historic importance. So juggling all of those things, we had a number of schemes. And the Shortens came in and said, I don't want to look at any of this. I have no interest. I know all about old houses, and I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to put a bunch of bedrooms in this little attic space up here, and we're going to create some extra things. And as soon as they actually got into the house and really looked at the house, they recognized that the structure would not support a second floor right there, and that the bedroom spaces and just the areas they were thinking didn't really fit in the way that they did. So we came very close to back to the studies we had done with the Eckards, which was, let's get the front of the house, the cape, really usable. Let's take the viable material. This is a different sort of preservation as far as the garage isn't historic, but the garage is good structural sound material. So economically, let's use that for part of your construction, and then in the middle, let's see where we can get some extra space for you. So we're able with that to get a full foundation if we step away and protect the other areas, which gives them some nice space in a basement. It also created an area to allow us to say, here is the driveway backside entry to the house. So when you come in, you feel like this yard here is separate. It's the front door of the house, but it's in a very unusual location because of the way the driveway has evolved now that it's not all family houses next to each other. So we look to make this middle piece acknowledge that you've come to the house, you have a place to come in, and that's the family and everyone entry area. Whereas this becomes now your gathering area. The front door is actually where you go in and out on that little front lawn. It's what is, in most houses, a backyard, but it's the front yard to the water. So it created some separation between the two areas. We struggled a lot with the roof lines. You can see the garage is one roof line that is a certain height, and the house is another that is actually a bit higher. Also, interestingly, the garage is almost 2 feet floor plane wise higher than the main house. So there were a lot of challenges of how do you get one to meet the other. And so we used the gable of this new part to separate it from your eye so that you have something that breaks. And it allowed the garage roof to go all the way over, as well as for the house roof to go all the way over. Could we advance to the opposite side of this, essentially, the other long elevation? Thank you. So at the back of the house, right here, as you can see up above, is that original cape. And then here is, as you can also see up above, is the not-so-pretty side of the garage. It has a very different pitched roof so that it could have as much height as it could. It was built in a very utilitarian way. Let's get some space above this garage area. But as I said, it's well constructed. The Shortens aren't tearing everything down. They wanted to work with that. So again, we looked at how can we do a gable that's in this addition area that will bring it all together. So we did, I guess, drag the garage roof a little bit further, and then we really broke it. So what faces the water is a much more traditional sloped roof, similar actually to the dormer of the main house, which we did drag, as I said, with the other roof. We pulled and dragged into the addition. So the house, the historic house, in essence, has spread into the new house. And this was our study of how to help the Shortens find a way to bring a really wonderful home into use for them for many, many, many years to come and generations to come.
Well, thank you very much, Leslie. It's very complete as always. I was smiling at the beginning of your presentation because usually when someone is there for something as significant as this, the first part of the conversation is trying to convince us how the house is not historic. And, this is not historic. It's not even, it's barely 175 years old. And so, I was smiling. I wasn't laughing. I was smiling, listening to you, giving the speech about the Sears and the history of the house and the significance of the Sears. I mean, when we say something historically significant, when one of the items is, did someone, who owned the home, was significant to the history of Chatham, and certainly Sears Point, the Sears, and the monument in Provincetown, everything that the family's related to is quite significant. The date of the house, whether it's 1910 or 1930, 1940, to me personally is not, that's a given. And I think you're not going to have an argument for the first part of the discussion when we say that this property, 70 Sears Point, is historically significant. Having said that, our job really is, okay, what do we have? What are we doing? Are the changes you're making, I'm giving you a speech now, does it affect the historical integrity of the original historic property? And from the get-go, I know the property, I know it from the water, I know it, the seascape,
Seascape.
Not streetscape,
Instead of
but
streetscape.
seascape, a lot of S's, is important to the community. We've had about three or four homes on Sears Point in the last 10 or 15 years, which we've lost to major development, and every time I sail by and look up and see it, I say, oh, there it goes. And 70 Sears Point, well, still there. Debbie's house is still there. But, and I think, from my point of view, we'll get everybody else's comments, but let me start off by saying, when I look at, the changes that you're making, if we agree that the most historic part of the house, of the property that we want to save, is the original cottage, okay? and the view of that cottage from the sea. There is no street, if you will. There's a path, if you find it, to get to it. You know, my concern is that the changes that you're making to the original house in terms of these, I guess that's called could go to 2.0. You know, the changes you're making to it, is that called a Nantucket roof or something?
It's a
you know?
Nantucket dormer, yes.
Say again?
A Nantucket dormer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, compared to what was there, you know, what was the historic house, and then the small windows in the front of the house with the significant amount of, I love this word, fenestration, that you're adding to the cottage from the front and the back, well, that's a big change on what I consider a significantly historic home. On top of that, you know, you're moving, you're enlarging it, making it a good couple of feet. I don't know how many feet you're stretching it, you know, and the roof line is continuous. If it's just one roof line,
It is.
and, you know, one of
Broken by
the
the center.
basic tenets from my perspective, and I think the Historical Commission, when we do have an historic structure, and people have, you know, things change. 1700, somebody had a child, they built an L. Another child built another L. The house has changed. Change is part of life, and it's part of the history of Chatham. We like change, but we're trying to, at least we are, in my mind, save the integrity of the original structure. I would agree with your discussion and your argument relative to the so-called connection, you know, the in-between that you need. You need that property, you need that space in order to make a living. All right, I would accept that, you know, and even the design of the gable versus the, whatever that's called, you know, I'm not an architect, electrical engineer, I can help you, is fine. But in my view, and how can we, and I know you struggled on this, just looking at the work you did, how can you do that? But how can we maintain the original cottage, you know, better? I know it's going to change a little bit, but the changes that you're making to that original cottage, to me, are quite significant. We've lost it. You can't find it. There's no separation. There's no separation with the roof lines, and there's no separation with the front plane. It's all one large building. Quite honestly, somebody look at this, and I look at the bottom of that, I say, well, that's a beautiful house that you designed. But that's not our job. Our job is to try to help and save the integrity of the original historic structure. This is hurting me to tell you this, because I know the good work you do, and that's from my point of view. So I'm trying very hard to go into much structure. How the heck are you going to do that and still maintain what you want? So that's my preamble. Having said that, we'll go around the room and see where you feel. Robert, how do you feel? Yes. Oh, Robert. See, my Bob's. Go ahead, Robert. Either one, choose.
Yeah, I will add to what Frank says. I agree with what he's saying. I have 4 concerns. The first concern is that you can't really recognize when you see this bottom version on drawing 2.0, you can't recognize the original iconic cottage house. It's a colonial revival, really classic, iconic house, and you can't really recognize it. The eye is not drawn to it. It's drawn to the center. The new entrance sort of subtracts the focus on the original house. You don't even see where you should go in to the original house until maybe an afterthought. The other thing is there are 13, if I count them right, 13 windows instead of 4, which is like, I wouldn't say egregious, but I guess I let that slip out. It's a lot of windows. And so that really takes away from the view on the top, which is really the iconic old cottage. And finally, the volume of the addition seems to be too big. It should be, if you can make this a little bit, if you could go back and revisit it and make it a little less tall and less volumetric. I know you've added a center stairway inside of it and a new sitting room and so forth. Can you do that without making it such a large volume and such a tall volume? So those are my comments.
Bob?
I agree with what's been said. It was also occurring to me that the excuse me, center section is contrary to what the Cape Cod Commission would recommend for avoiding substantially changing the architecture. In other words, it should be subservient to the rest of it, so that, as Bob says, that it's not just a continuous thing. It's hard to see where the old house was, especially when you've made the windows significantly different in terms of the fenestration. So I'm hesitant to approve this without getting some modifications so that the old original house will stand out as being historic.
Nance?
I don't want to belabor the points that have already been made, but I completely agree with what Frank and the two Roberts said. But I will repeat, like, the guidelines for historic preservation and rehabilitation and adding on to an old historically significant structure are that you can identify very clearly the original structure, and you can identify the new, the changing, the modern additions, the later additions, and the way this is one roof line just kind of, takes that away. It also, I heard yesterday such passion about preserving the historically significant details of the interior, and what I see happening on the outside is the opposite of that, is not looking at what is making the original traditional cottage historically significant. That's the windows, the simple dormers, the simple windows, the roof line, and all of that is being lost. There's an awful lot of demolition that's involved in changing all the windows, in taking off half the roof to create a new type of dormer, in taking off the right wall to add a thing. So, and just the massing of the addition. I mean, I think we all respect and want and appreciate that they are trying to maintain a historic house and build something that their family can live in. We understand they need more space, but this looks like a whole new house that's plunked in between a garage and an existing house, and it does not achieve any of the things that I just talked about. So I will just agree with what everyone else said and hope that there is some thought about how do we actually maintain the historical integrity of the original structure, which they seem to care so passionately about, and I know you do.
Janet?
Well, I understand what everybody's saying, but I think these people want to live in this house. And the little warrens of room, I mean, the only way to have this historically significant part that some boats are going to see on the way by is to just leave it the way it is and not use it, frankly. And I'm not sure that that's the best solution. I mean, this family is willing to invest a lot of resources in this, and they're trying to follow the conservation and the historical guidelines. And the other options were to just level it, and we're seeing that all around town. So they're not going to use that little sunroom. Having visited it 3 times, they're not going to use that little sunroom like that. So the only way to save this historically significant is just leave it alone.
Yeah, but that's not.
Before we move on.
No, wait, no, let's not get a debate. We'll say, let's go around the room, and then we can debate or have a discussion.
I don't have a problem with.
You have no problems with the application? At all? Okay.
Well, sure, they can revise it to make us happy, but
Yes.
I think the family wants to live in it.
Yes, but, okay.
They're saving the chimney.
We can get back to that. We can get back to that issue, Janet. Go ahead. Steph?
Yeah, I have one question about the middle section. What is the material on the siding of that? Because it looks like it's totally a different siding.
No, it's all, just the siding is all white cedar.
So it would be one straight,
Oh, yes.
I'm with Janet. I think that the house is being saved. I think we've heard that otherwise there'd be demolition, and we'd be losing the house completely.
Sandy?
I have a question, and I've looked through, and does the middle connector, is it set back? Or is
Set-
it set forward
Forward by 2 feet.
by 2 feet? And could the roof line be broke? I guess it can't be. I've been looking at it and trying to, and since I can't draw a decent stick figure, I take,
I never say no to anything, but we did extensive studies on the roof line. And this was a solution that checked all boxes as far as headroom, joining of making it congruent, work together. So I don't see, I have a feeling I'm going to need to, but I don't see a different, this roof line came out of a very concerted effort. And given the iteration we got to, and honestly where it is, I think it's a nice separation between all the different years and generations of this home.
Okay.
I have another question about the windows. Are they, would they consider putting one window in each one of, as I look at it, the doghouse dormers on the end of this new Nantucket one?
I would-
And could they be like 2/1? Could we go through and excuse me, change the style of the windows?
Did Janet ask, Janet? No, Janet, just hold on.
I can't hear him.
Oh, sorry.
Sorry,
Ask the
Janet.
question of the question. Yeah, I
So-
can't hear either, but
What
that's
did-
okay.
What did you say,
My
Robert?
question about the windows, if, as I'm looking on A2.0, on the bottom, the dormer, the proposed dormer, if you took out the 2 windows and put in 1 window on either end of that doghouse those doghouse dormers, on the either end, the doghouse dormers, and could we change the windows to 2/1 to make it sort of, I don't know, more historic looking? I actually don't have a great deal of problem with this application.
Okay. Robert?
Those were my suggestions.
Well, hello, yes, this is a tough one, because I know how hard the architect worked on trying to make this a livable house. So I'm kind of on the fence here. When I first look at the bottom, the new house, what stands out is the centerpiece, which is modern. And then the old house has kind of disappeared. And thank you, by the way, for saving the chimney. But if you look at it, if you're just standing in front of it, as you would on the second here, it just looks like now it's a modern house. Before it was a historical house looking over the waterway there. So this is really a tough one for me.
Okay. I wanted to get a quick sense, not going in yet, but it's okay, not going into the details, but it's kind of a toss-up right here, okay? 4-3-3-4, 4-3-3-4, on how this could go. And I would suggest, it's up to you, I know all the work you've done, but I would suggest that we can, I think you heard some very significant concerns, the center section, the dominance of it, the continuous roof line, the lack of separability, and I realize, you made a comment there just now, you checked all the boxes. Well, guess what?
We didn't.
Some of the boxes may not be checked. And I know that you're dealing with the owners, and they would like, and I know architects are betwixt and between, this is what they want, but I would prefer, and we could take a vote on it, we could take a vote, there's no question of historical significance, I think we have a consensus on that. The next step, do we want to impose a demolition delay? Absolutely not. And we appreciate the comments that a couple of members made about, the fact that they want to save the house. Unfortunately, we're not involved with the interior, okay, all that work. You know what we're involved in, the exterior and the loss of it. The comment was the severability, the consistency of the roof line, the volume. Well, the volume is okay as far as I'm concerned, but it's got to be separated somehow from it. And I would ask personally, and also we can take a vote on it, is that give us some time, let's adjourn, whatever we call it, continuance? Thank you very much. As much as you want, to take another look at it, and then come back to us, and you can come back to us and say, this is it, fish or cut bait. And we could do that. And, I don't want to play games, I don't want to do a crapshoot, but I think that might be the best way. And some of the changes you could make, in my mind, are not that significant. The roof line, change the roof line a bit, separate it, the back and the front, separate it. The Nantucket dormers versus, a more traditional dormer. When you came before us in 2004 and the garage, okay, that was already, something significantly different, but it's far away from it, okay? Now, it's a problem. I have a problem. And I think you heard from 3 or 4 of the members that they feel strongly about it. That's okay. You may get the vote, but I don't think that's what we want right now. Would you do that?
Yeah, could I have a minute? I have a few things, if I could
Good.
respond a little bit.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm familiar with the Cape Cod Commission. I completely understand the thinking of make sure that the historic house is acknowledged and that people can recognize, here's our jewel of history and here is our house that married to it nicely. But I also do believe there is an approach that says, this is a house that has evolved over time and that is continuing to look like a wonderful home. And so I do look for some consistency and ways to actually read the cues of the existing house. And if I were one of the Sears architects and I wanted to add on to this house, yes, for historic times when I can't get my contractor to get everything to match up, I'd probably do a jog. But I also can see ways to actually make the house itself still look really wonderful by enhancing it. And with challenging roof lines, I do think we acknowledged a new middle modern addition to this home, as well as a slightly hidden addition to the home. I just want to put that thought out there, and
It's a valid thought, but that's not what we're about.
I understand.
Our job in terms of historic preservation is exactly what it says. And there were some comments here about, well, you got to live in the house. We know you have to live in the house, but they bought a very historic home, okay, in a very historic area, and okay, you need to respect that. And when you look at the bottom of that drawing, it's a beautiful house. I'd love to build that house, okay, but that's not what we're about. I mean, zoning would probably say, oh, it's a great house, go ahead, go build it, okay? But we're not zoning. That we're something different. That's the purpose of this commission. That's why we're here, to try and help and maintain and preserve as much of the historic architecture and that exists. And this loses it. And that's the problem. That's the heartache from my point of view. Yeah, it's a burden on the owner. Absolutely. We know that. If we put an 18-month demolition delay, that's a lot of money. It's going to cost somebody. We don't want to do that. We really do not want to do that. We want to find a way that we could, say, yeah, you really did a good job. Not that this is not a good job, but in my mind, it doesn't preserve the architectural features of the historic house, which get lost. Yes, Ms. Nancy.
Well, I don't know, I know that you don't like a lot of discussion between us, and I certainly don't want to argue with my colleagues.
right ahead.
Because I guess I really respect everybody on the commission and their opinions, and I do feel that we have lost, although it's a nice design, and yes, there's nothing wrong, it's a nice house design, I just feel like it is actually demolishing so many parts of the historic structure. So I actually would like to know, for example, why Janet feels like that's not happening. Because we would look at a house and often think the same thing, so I would actually like to know why you feel that's preserving the house. I would love to have more on that.
Okay, I think it's almost impossible to preserve the house, frankly.
that's not-
Because,
really?
well, from what the owner was having to say, the upstairs in it, the bedrooms are minuscule, and the bathroom doors you can't open.
Yes,
You
but-
can't-
But
But
that's
there is something in between, though, what it is and what it becomes. I guess that's all I'm saying. It doesn't have to be all or nothing, right?
Yeah, you see, that's the issue, to check the boxes. Yes, they checked all the boxes. They made everything they want, but by doing that, whatever is there from an historic point of view, it has to be done differently. They could do it. We've seen it done all the time.
I know, I think the only way you can do it, though, is to just set that little part, that house apart, like the McCarthys did, and then build a big house that has
We
got
did,
the view.
we did a study to that end. That is the way, if I may. That is the simplest way to preserve a
Sure it
historic
is.
house, is
Yeah.
to completely separate. And we did a study, and it took up too much square footage as far as zoning and
coverage, yeah.
conservation. And if I may, one more thing, the owners didn't like it at all because it meant that they were in this antique totally separate from their family.
Absolutely
the
not.
rest of the house.
I
Absolutely
don't
not.
think
You
any of
can't-
us would
I'm
say you
just,
have that.
I don't mean to provoke, I'm just
no,
giving
no,
you the
nobody-
background that
I
we
don't
had.
think anybody is yes, I got him. I don't think anybody is suggesting, this is not a 5-acre plot. We know that. You can't do that. This is not the McCarthy plot. We know that. But there are ways to separate it. And I think, yes, I'm sorry, Robert.
No problem at all. Thanks for the attention I get.
No,
to
that's
speak.
okay.
Yeah. No, I'm very much in the, interested in the exchange you both had, Janet and Nancy. To me, it seems like there must be a way to make the house livable, more livable, significantly more livable, with more volume, with a nice basement, so forth, without so much volume in the middle, without such a tall structure, possibly not orthogonal. You got it on an orthogonal roof line, possibly consistent roof line with the others. I don't know, but you're creative. You've looked into things. I know you could do it without maybe 13 windows. Maybe it could be 6 windows or something. Yeah, there's only 4 now. So just make sure that the iconic house stands out and still make it livable. It must be a way. I don't think it's impossible.
Okay, I think I would like, if you agree, we'll do a continuance?
Yes, please.
Okay, and just let us know, and I know you've got to go back to your client. Are they online?
No, I'm sorry, I didn't say at the beginning. Susan had planned to be here. A family matter came up. She was sorry she couldn't join.
No, but and they could watch it on TV, they can get on notes. And, and the way this works, I have to tell you, you've been around the block. If the answer is no, that's it, well, then we take it from there. But we'd prefer not to be it. That's, I try to tell people, why did you let that then get demolished? Well, we didn't let it get demolished. We failed in not being able to change the mind of the people to try. It's a demolition delay, okay? To try and at least convey our thoughts and feelings from an historic preservation point of view. It's an iterative process. We'll see what happens, where it goes.
Absolutely.
If it's something really germane, I'm going to move on. What?
The point was made, I think, in the beginning. The sale of this house was contingent upon not demolishing it.
That's
and saving it.
immaterial. That's immaterial.
No, it's
Janet.
not immaterial.
Janet, it's immaterial to what we do. It's immaterial to the Chatham Historical Commission.
Well-
It's immaterial to us how much they pay. It's immaterial how many children they have. It's immaterial relative to how many bedrooms they want. We're here to deal with the preservation of the historical architecture and character of the community, and we try our best. This is not a yes or no. This is a process, okay? A good half of the commission has problems with it, and I think the applicant is being very gracious and going to go back and take a look. And she can come back and say no, or she can come back and say, all right, I'd like to try and do something to satisfy both. It's not easy. That's why they get paid the big bucks. Okay.
Frank, can I just ask another question? It occurred to me that perhaps the historic change or the historic addition to the zoning bylaw, which will allow flexibility to maintain a house
Yes,
as
thank you.
is, might help with your, you mentioned the footprint a couple of times.
Very good.
And I was a conservation commissioner for 6 years. I don't see much of a problem with that, especially if you don't go towards the bluff there.
Right, right.
So that may not be such a hurdle, but zoning could be helped out by that extra footage you might be allowed.
You aware of that bylaw?
Yes, thank you.
Did you consider it at all?
I did not, so thank you for reminding me.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only, it's coverage and also, well, setback is not an issue, but it's coverage and quite honestly, you know, the zoning board approached me, the chairman, about a couple of months ago. They want to propose a change to the town of Chatham zoning bylaw to include historic preservation as a reason for a special permit. You know, the criteria, you know, they can give a special permit. Historic preservation's not in that. But because there's so much concern in the town of Chatham with the loss of our historic character of the community, that let's add historic preservation. So if they get you know, the neighbors object, everybody object, but they say, yeah, but this house is so historic, we want to preserve it. Check mark, allow them to do it. So, all right.
No.
Okay, at this particular point, yes, ma'am.
We do need a motion for a date specific for the continuance.
Yeah, unfortunately, our next meeting
Well,
is, guess what?
it's
July
quite
15th.
important that I mean, I'm happy to continue, but I would hope there's some consideration that we can be heard as soon as possible.
Well, July 15th is our next regular meeting. Sooner than that?
No, that's.
Fine, okay, no. I just wanted to let you know
Okay.
when our next regular meeting was. Leslie, if we needed to do something special, we could hold a special meeting. You know.
Thank you, I'm
Yeah,
flattered.
No, this is important enough, and I think there's enough compassion here, you know, about it, that we want to do that. So we need a motion to continue it to July 15th.
I move the Historic Commission continue this matter to July 15th with the agreement of the applicant.
Okay.
Second.
Okay, second? Second, thank you very much. And I lost my pen.
We both did without mics.
Okay, Bob,
Yes.
Nancy,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Sandy,
Yes.
Janet,
Yes,
Robert,
Yes.
and the chair votes yes. Sandy, thank you very much for approaching the microphone like that. Yes, I can hear you.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, all right, guys. We have a couple of things that we need to discuss in terms of the agenda, just for information, and we can get out of here shortly. The West Chatham Housing Development, the next meeting is July 17th. Okay, so just so you know, the process, the Historical Commission, the zoning board has our comments as well as comments from everybody else and an extensive amount of dialogue, and they're going to be meeting on July 17th. Hopefully, at that meeting, we'll receive some guidance from the zoning board of adjustment when they want to address the issue of historic preservation. So it's a long, drawn-out process. Not long, drawn out, but, you know, we're on top of it. Review of the rules and regulation. You were going to share something about town council?
All I have to share is that we are back and forth, and we're going to bring something to the commission soon, and he has agreed also to meet, or to come to a meeting and discuss it with everyone when it comes time.
Very simply, put another way, when the council makes an opinion, it's got to get reviewed internally by the town manager, you know, before they let us, the public see it, because once we see it, the public sees it, and they want to make sure we're not. So but I think we have enough examples of things we might want to change in the future. The next item was the determination of eligibility of the Nickerson homestead. My finger was getting tired by dialing Mass Historic, but I did finally track down who actually was doing the work, and I got a positive answer that it's on her desk. She's writing the final report, and we should get an answer within 1 or 2 weeks. I probably shouldn't say, but she seemed to be positive, so I think we're okay. But they wouldn't tell me officially. So that's happening. I know the Nickersons are quite pleased about that whole thing. And hopefully the Conservation Foundation also, if in fact we have potentially another National Register site in Chatham, the next step would be the actual report. Now, in conversation with Ms. Donovan, we think we have identified the funding necessary, about $15,000, to do the next phase, and so it's got to work on that. So that's the thing that happens. And that probably will take another 6 months or a year, but we're moving ahead. Christina, give update on the Form As and Bs?
We're in talks with Eric Dre and going to be working on a contract with him.
Okay, so we're at the contract phase, so that's moving ahead. Demolition by neglect has been neglected. Nothing from,
I do not have anything, an update on that.
all right,
But I know.
I've got to start.
Actually, I do. Excuse me, sorry.
Sorry.
They are reviewing the previous meetings that you had discussed in previous meetings, and I believe Christine will be putting together something soon. Sorry, I forgot about that part.
Okay. All right. Be patient. It's not my strong point. Sorry. The Coast Guard Boathouse, things are moving ahead. 90 Bridge Street, if you get a chance, go down there and you see they're starting to put the pilings in for the boathouse, which would then be relocated from the boathouse, where is it? What's that?
Quincy.
Quincy, thank you very much. Quincy and back into Chatham, which would be a great site. And so hopefully by fall of next year, we'll see it here. No administrative approvals. Okay, so-called chairman's report, just very quickly. You have on your desk a copy of an email that was my request to Katie Donovan, our Director of Community Development, and a request for legal services. And effectively, long story short, we shouldn't talk much about it because it's not on the agenda. There is a piece of legislation proposed in the Mass Legislature which could make significant changes to local historical commissions, effectively pass is everybody here get on the listserv and get the notices from Mass Historic? Nancy? I guess Nancy and I are the only ones who like to emails. As members of the Historical Commission, you can go on this Mass Historical, she's pressed the button. I feel it's like the Gong Show. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I can send the information if you're not,
All right,
you're not
good.
on there.
Thank you. But it's interesting, and what happened here is back about 5 or 6 weeks ago, somebody said, hey, I just heard the legislature is considering a piece of legislation which would effectively take local control away from historical commissions. It probably won't happen, but it's, something like this is being discussed, it's dangerous, put forward by the AIA, that's the architectures group that thinks they should change how historical commissions operate. So anyway, we're on top of it. Thank goodness Katie's on top of it, and I'll keep you informed. All right. I just wanted to remind people of our preservation awards, which would be next year in 2026. Christina has gotten 10 inquiries for an application, so I want to begin the process. By beginning the process Christina and I will update the form. Robert, you know what we're talking about? The Chatham Preservation Awards? There's a group, no, Bob, you, okay, you know. Do you know about the Preservation Awards?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good. I wasn't sure. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't talking
There's
over.
one out in the hall for the mill.
You got it. McGoffrey with Griswold. Okay, so I'd like to start the process because we have so many potential applications, it would take some time to do it. Just to quickly point out, for those who are interested, the Godfrey Windmill is going to be operating this Saturday. Hopefully there's some wind, and we're going to be grinding corn. If you're further interested, Colonel Godfrey, a guy named Rolad, is giving a talk tonight at 5 o'clock at the Atwood about Colonel Godfrey's history. Of course, entree on my windmill. all right? And I don't know how many people got a chance on Saturday to go to the Atwood Farm, not the Atwood, the Nickerson Family Association, the raising of the barn. So they begin the process of the barn. This is the barn that we saved, with the Nickerson Family Association, from 68 Shell Drive, which we strongly believe was William Nickerson Jr.'s homestead. That's all I have, which is probably too much. Any other comments, questions, deletions? Our next agenda again is, our next meeting is July 15th. Pack a lunch. It's 8 applications, and hopefully it'll be a rainy day, so we won't feel too bad.
I was gonna say 9 now, because we just continued.
9. I don't know how we're going to do this, but we will do it. We will get through it. Thank you very much. Okay, we get a motion for adjournment?
Frank, did you want to bring up about the time?
Say again?
Did you want to bring up about the?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Time. 9:30 or 10:30 for site visits, okay? Personally, mornings are not the best time for me, okay? And I prefer the 10 to 10:30, and I think, I think the majority of people, I'll do a show of hands, people who prefer 10:30, raise your hand. No opinion? Well, we got 4. 9:30? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ooh. 4, 3. Robert, did you vote?
He voted for 10:30.
I have tennis at 8, so I'm not,
You
I
voted for
I can
10:30?
try to get a sub for tennis. but-
All right, so what was the 10:30 again? I'm sorry, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
You split.
Okay. So it's 10:30.
Good.
Okay. All right.
I can read forms, and, if I can't make it,
That's right. The site visits are important most of the time. They're not important all of the time. And I think, what's the purpose of the site visit? From my view, the purpose of the site visit is, oh yeah, this is an historic house. Because the pictures don't necessarily tell, and I think this Kopitchnik, or whatever the heck I say it, was a good example. I was looking at the wrong place. I was not looking at the right one, and so
I know. You were looking at the wrong house, is that what you said?
well, I'm saying,
Oh.
yeah, but, where are we? And it's important that we know physically what's going
Oh,
on.
he was looking at the main house and thinking that's where the
The
demo
main
had
house,
occurred? Oh,
right,
okay, no,
exactly. Yeah.
I had read the forms.
All right, good, I'm glad everybody knows what's going on, I don't.
Paperwork, people.
Okay, a motion to adjourn, please?
I move we adjourn the meeting?
I'll second.
Second? All right, no discussion. Bob?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Steph?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Janet?
Yes.
Robert?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Thank you.